Hey everyone, thanks for coming. We're just going to allow some time for folks to trickle in for our meeting tonight. We'll probably start in about 5 minutes or so make yourselves comfortable. I see we just got a phone listener, so I'm just going to repeat just what I said. We're just letting folks trickle in for the moment, and then we will start around 6:05 or so. Thank you. Hi, everyone. We're just letting folks trickle in for the moment, just for the time being. We'll start in about 2 minutes at 6:05. Thanks so much. All right. Okay. I see we are at 6:05. I think we've got a good number of folks who are in the meeting now. Thank you all for attending. My name is Ben Larson. I'm a planner with the County of San Diego in long-range planning. Here to talk to you tonight about the Housing Zoning Ordinance update. This is the second community workshop that we've hosted, but our first during the public review period. Our first one was held back in November, and we will actually have another community workshop next week. If you'd like to come back and share your comments again with us. With me tonight are my county colleagues, Tara Lieberman, Camila Easland, Mike Madrid, Alex Partita, and Holly Cortell. And also joining us tonight are some of our consultants who have been giving us a lot of help on this project. Shannon Liska, Emily Elliott, and Hannah Creighton. So with that, I think I will hand it to Emily to kind of take us through the beginning of the presentation and hand it off to her. So there you are, Emily.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben. And we're really excited to discuss this project with everyone. And if we could go ahead and advance to, there we go, meeting purpose. The purpose of our meeting today is to provide an overview of the new housing laws that have been adopted by the state and that require updates to the county's development processes. The changes the county is proposing are those that implement recent state housing law. We hope to receive your feedback on the public review draft of the code amendments, and we're here to answer your questions related to the recent state housing laws and to discuss their applicability to county communities. So let's review the ways that you can participate in this evening's meeting. First, as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and this evening we are capturing your input in a few different ways. Let's look at the primary options for input today. We encourage you to submit questions through the Q&A box at any time during the meeting. We're going to do our best to answer as many questions as we can throughout the meeting, but we do have quite a big group tonight. So for those that we're not able to get to, we'll also post a summary of the questions and comments and responses on the project website in the next couple of weeks. As I mentioned, toward the end of the meeting, as we wrap up, if we have time remaining, we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. In terms of ground rules for the meeting, we wanted to note that everyone is encouraged to participate, and we would like to request that everyone please be respectful and keep your questions and comments brief. All right, let's orient you with the Zoom controls. As I mentioned, we encourage you to submit your questions using the Q&A box at any point during the meeting. That Q&A box is circled in yellow on the screen, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can as the meeting proceeds. Please use the chat box only for technical support. And we do want to hear your feedback and questions. So if you have any technical issues, just drop a question in the chat and we'll be happy to help you out. Now let's get right down to it, and we'll begin with the project overview. As previously stated, the county is required to implement recent state housing laws, and we'll be referring to this update effort tonight as the project. And this project will revise the county zoning ordinance to make it consistent with new state housing law. I should note here that the county is already complying with new state laws already in effect, and this process formalizes the alignment of county code and state law. And this is meant to reduce confusion at the permit desk for both applicants and staff and make sure there's less ambiguity about development rules. And in addition, this project will also help implement the county's recently adopted housing element. This project includes updates to the county zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance includes the regulations that apply to new development. The purpose of the zoning ordinance is to serve the public health, safety, and general welfare of county residents. It describes specific standards that apply to different uses, such as housing, commercial, and industrial land uses. And it also implements the land uses established in the county's general plan. Okay, as part of this update, the county will be addressing 21 housing bills passed between 2018 and 2022. This set of bills does not cover every housing bill. For example, it does not include SB 9, SB 35, SB 6, or AB 2011. The majority of the bills that went into effect on January 1st, 2023 are not covered in these changes. We should note, though, that these bills not included in the project are being implemented, and the county is using the criteria in state law as they go into effect. The bills were organized within 3 of the following topics that we'll cover tonight. The first is housing production, which includes development standards of accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, to make them easier to build in more places. It also includes changes to regulations that allow for the creation of small single-family homes. Second, the update includes changes to affordable housing development, which includes updates relating to religious institution affiliated housing development, mixed income housing development standards, and updating the density bonus provisions. And finally, the updates cover homeless housing, which covers low barrier navigation centers, emergency shelters, and supportive housing. We'll now go over each of the three topics and the specific state requirements as they apply to the county.
All right, so I'll kick us off with housing production, the first of the three. Specifically, changes relate to larger goals of incentivizing middle-income housing, such as townhomes. They also provide opportunities for infill development. Required changes here fall under three categories. The first is small lot subdivisions. A small lot subdivision allows for single-family homes on small lots in certain multifamily areas. They are fee simple, meaning the owner of the house also owns the land the home sits on. Small housing developments utilizing floor area ratio and accessory dwelling units are also covered in here. First, we'll discuss small lot subdivision. State law establishes specific requirements that must be met for small lot subdivision projects. The requirements for small home lot developments were added to the zoning ordinance. And the requirements in state law for the small lot subdivisions include that the lot is zoned for multifamily and the project meets the density of the multifamily zone. The parcel is no larger than 5 acres and is substantially surrounded by qualified urban uses as defined by the state, and that each single family unit has a total area of floor space of up to 1,750 square feet. It is important to note that the subdivision would also be subject to other minimum requirements in the zoning ordinance, such as height and setbacks from the lot line. Additionally, the law prohibits a small home development on a housing element site identified for low or very low income households. In recent years, the state legislature has found success in facilitating the development of small-scale housing. Building upon this work, the state now sets a minimum standard for floor area ratio, also known as FAR, for multifamily zones that use FAR. FAR is defined as the ratio of a building's total floor area in relation to the size of the lot the building sits on. Essentially, FAR is how much floor area can be on a lot. The floor area can be in a number of different configurations. The graphic on the slide here shows how FAR works. For example, with a FAR of 1, you could build a 1-floor building and occupy the entire lot, as shown in the left image on the graphic, or you can build 2 stories that occupy half of the lot, or even build 4 stories that occupy 1/4 of the lot. Each of the 3 images shown on the slide all have a floor area ratio of 1, even though they are different building configurations. So new state law establishes a minimum FAR for residential projects that are between 3 and 10 units. For 3 to 7 unit projects, the minimum FAR is 1, and for projects that are 8 to 10 units, the minimum FAR is 1.25. So the county does not typically subject residential uses to FAR limits, so the changes are really only relevant to a number of mixed use and commercially designated parcels that allow for multifamily development. Next, we'll discuss changes regarding accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. And I'll begin with a quick overview of ADUs. So accessory dwelling units are attached or detached residential dwelling units that provide complete independent living facilities and are located on a lot with a proposed or existing primary residence. ADUs are often also referred to as granny flats, in-law or mother-in-law units, secondary dwelling units, garage conversions, or carriage houses. The state has identified ADUs as a valuable source of housing since they can help provide lower cost housing in existing neighborhoods. ADUs are a source of housing that are more naturally affordable and can provide owners with flexibility and a source of rental income on their property. Every year, new regulations to facilitate the development of ADUs are adopted by the state. Since the county's last update to the zoning ordinance in 2019, several new ADU regulations have been adopted and must be incorporated into the zoning ordinance. We'll go over the specific changes in a moment, but it's also worth mentioning here that staff took this opportunity to complete a comprehensive revision of the ADU ordinance. The ADU ordinance was reformatted and reorganized to make the development regulations more user-friendly. The ordinance was restructured to have a more logical flow and order of the various requirements to make it easier for applicants to understand the permitting process. Again, it's important to note that the county is already complying with these bills for ADU standards through facts sheets and forms, even though the zoning ordinance has not yet been updated. Broadly, these state regulations focus on ensuring a faster approval process, allowing larger ADUs in height and size, and providing flexibility so that properties can accommodate an ADU. While the majority of the ordinance remains the same, there are a number of new changes as required by state law that apply to ADUs, including square footage and height requirements, applicable setbacks, and a setback is how far a building or structure needs to be from a property line, the removal of requirements that inhibit the construction of ADUs, such as minimum lot size, the number of ADUs and junior ADUs that are allowed on a single property, and allowing for the sale of ADUs separate from the primary residence in specific situations when sold to a qualifying nonprofit. Now I'll hand it back off to Emily, who will discuss density bonuses and affordable housing.
Perfect, thanks, Shannon. So we'll now transition to talk about density bonuses and affordable housing. Great. So previously, we received a lot of questions about what exactly qualifies as affordable housing and low-income housing while talking with folks around the county about these changes. Essentially, an affordable unit is one that ends up costing someone of low income no more than 1/3 of their income in rent. We break down layers of affordable housing into a few different tiers based on something called area median income. And that's the middle household income of all households in the county. The tiers are separated into moderate, low, and very low based on area median income. For example, in the table shown on the slide, a family of 4 making $104,100 is at 80% of the area median and would be in the low income category. And before we get too far into this part of the presentation, it might be worth explaining a few things, such as what a density bonus is. A density bonus is a tool used to help encourage development of affordable housing or housing for special needs populations, such as seniors or students. Density bonuses are an option available to developers, where developers provide affordable units in exchange for higher density or other incentives. Other incentives could include taller buildings, shorter setbacks, and reduced parking requirements. Typically, the larger the percentage of units reserved, the greater the incentive. The state requires the county to provide specific density bonus incentives, and the changes we're about to present modify these incentives slightly. The first density bonus we'll discuss as part of this update has to do with low-income student housing. If student housing developments reserve at least 20% of their units for low-income students, these projects are now eligible to receive a 35% density bonus and 1 density bonus incentive, such as smaller setbacks. For example, if a project has a maximum of 100 units in its existing zoning, a 35% density bonus would allow for 135 units, for 35 additional units beyond the maximum. There are also been changes to max allowable density bonus for mixed income developments. It also includes amending the density bonus table to align with state law, and this consists of adding a bonus for 100% affordable developments and increasing the maximum density bonus from 35 to 50% for certain projects. Additionally, changes are required for 100% affordable housing located in VMT efficient areas. VMT is vehicle miles traveled. It is essentially a unit of measurement used to count daily miles traveled in a motor vehicle. A VMT efficient area is one where the VMT per capita is less than 85% of the regional VMT per capita. The new state law allows for such projects to have unlimited density and to receive a height increase of 3 stories or 33 feet in height. This height increase is in addition to what is already allowed above the existing maximum height requirement. This map shows the areas where the legislation applies in the county. The blue shows areas within half a mile of a major transit station, and the purple shows the VMT efficient areas. It is important to note that the county can still impose regulations to these projects, such as setbacks and design standards that are not in conflict with state law. Another change included in the update is for affordable housing development, specifically mixed income developments where market rate and affordable units are built together. The zoning ordinance will now require that affordable units and market rate units have access to the same entrances and common areas. Additionally, affordable units cannot be isolated to a specific floor or area in the development. Also included in the update are changes to parking for religious institutions affiliated housing developments. This does not require religious facilities to build housing or change the zoning of existing religious facilities. It only addresses the parking requirements for religious facilities affiliated housing developments. Religious institutions will be allowed to use a portion of their parking up to 50% for housing if they choose to do so. Essentially, the code is being modified to allow some of the space currently occupied by parking spots for religious institutions to be used to build housing. Remaining religious parking spaces can also count toward the parking requirements for any housing that is built on site. Finally, on our list of affordable housing changes is replacement of demolished affordable housing. So if any affordable housing is demolished to build a new housing development, that housing must be replaced in the new development. The newly built affordable unit must be provided at the same affordability level as the unit lost in the demolition. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the development of homeless housing.
All right. So in order to address the homelessness crisis, the state has focused on adopting new laws to facilitate the development of housing for the homeless population. These housing developments are often linked to services that can help improve homeless individuals' health and to move them to permanent housing. Homeless housing addressed in this update includes 3 different types: low barrier navigation centers, emergency shelters, and supportive housing. A low barrier navigation center, or LBNC, is a temporary service-enriched shelter that helps homeless individuals and families to quickly obtain permanent housing. An emergency shelter is housing or shelter for persons experiencing homelessness. This is temporary housing that is limited to occupancy of 6 months or less. And supportive housing is housing with no limit on length of stay that is linked to on-site or off-site services that assist the supportive housing resident in retaining the housing, improving their health, and maximizing their ability to live and, when possible, work in the community. Let's take a deeper dive into some of the changes for those different types of housing, starting with low barrier navigation centers. Again, this type of shelter is service enriched and focused on helping homeless individuals and families to quickly obtain permanent housing. Low barrier navigation centers now must be allowed by right in zones that allow mixed use and multifamily housing. By right or ministerial approval means a development simply needs to meet the requirements outlined in the code and is not subject to discretionary review. So this differs from a discretionary review, which requires review and approval by a decision maker. LBNCs will also be exempt from certain special area regulators that require discretionary review. Similar changes were made to update the zoning ordinance regarding emergency shelters. Emergency shelters are now exempt from special area regulators that require a discretionary review. Additionally, parking standards for emergency shelters were amended to set parking requirements on staff levels only rather than on the number of beds that are in the shelter. Finally, for homeless housing, supportive housing will be required by right in multifamily zones and exempted from special area regulators that would require discretionary review. Additionally, language was added to the ordinance to ensure that supportive housing meets the requirements outlined by the state of California, and that supportive housing projects that meet the state definition are reviewed and processed ministerially pursuant to state law. So that wraps up the summary of the changes. And before we begin our Q&A, we're going to briefly cover the schedule for the Housing Zoning Ordinance update. So as shown on the slide, today we're conducting the second outreach event of this project. We will have one additional public meeting next week on Thursday, February 9th at 6 p.m. And during the third outreach event next week, staff will provide a summary of comments and feedback received so far and answer additional questions, receive additional feedback on the revised ordinance before the public review period concludes on Monday, February 13th. The project and feedback we received will then be presented to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors in the winter and spring of 2023.
All right. So we have concluded the presentation and are able to address additional questions. So we encourage that you use the Q&A function to provide your additional feedback and submit your questions. That Q&A box is circled in yellow on the screen, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can in the time allotted. And for those that we're not able to get to, we'll also post a summary of the questions and comments and responses on the project webpage in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We will also post this webinar recording to the project's website, as well as a copy of the slide deck.
Okay, thank you guys so much for doing a great job on the presentation. I think we're now in kind of a spot with the Q&A. We've been kind of answering some of these questions as we've been going, but I think we can offer some more verbal responses. And then today we also got some questions. Let me just pull them up. One question was about ADUs. They were wondering about the changes in zoning restrictions to the county to accommodate additional ADUs. And if so, what are the requirements for the restrictions? So there are some changes coming for the ADUs, as we kind of covered today. The most number of ADUs you have on a property is going to be 2. And one of those will have to be what's called a junior accessory dwelling unit. What that means is that it has to be contained or attached to the primary residence of the house. So you have to have a detached and an attached dwelling unit. You're going to go for 2. As well as there are some great resources online on the county website if you want to learn more about the county regulations, or you can look at our brand new nifty county ADU regulations that we're updating as a part of the ordinance. This project on our website, we've, as Emily mentioned earlier, we've actually kind of shifted things around, reformatted it so it's easier for folks to read and understand. Another question just about ADUs was about fifth wheel or livable trailers. Are those considered ADUs? And as of right now, no, they're not considered ADUs. But it is possible that if you took, for instance, a mobile home or a manufactured home or a trailer, provided, again, that you meet all the specific regulations for an ADU, make sure that it's up to code. If you put it on a permanent foundation, that is, it didn't have any wheels, then yes, that could potentially be considered an ADU in a lot of cases. And where can you get additional information regarding zoning changes? Again, I'll just stress that we are changing some portions of like what's allowable and some of the regulations in the zoning code, but we are not changing any zoning at all with this particular project. But if you do want to learn more about this project, you can come visit our website, and we'll post that. Actually, I want maybe in the chat with all panelists, with everyone. We can post in the chat the link to our website. Maybe one of my really awesome staff helped me out tonight, can help me out with that. There's also a subscribe button on there for if you want to receive more updates regarding to the housing zoning ordinance update or other information as well. If you're interested in future zoning. I think we've already answered some questions in the chat. I guess we can kind of go through that if we want. Camila, Mike, Emily, Shannon, any thoughts on that? Should we just kind of go through and answer some of these things verbally?
Yeah, I can answer one of the questions. I think it was related to whether or not you could have an ADU and multifamily and what's the maximum allowed. So yes, you can have an ADU and multifamily lot. And then typically would occur as a conversion of existing space that is not being used for housing. And that is up to 25% of the existing units. So you can convert those spaces into ADUs.
Awesome. And Emily, actually, so in the Zoom chat, there was just a it's like there's an option to send it to everyone. So it's kind of like starts on with like hosts and panelists. If you wouldn't mind just sending the exact link that you sent one more time, so everybody has access to that website. And Shannon or Emily, whoever is driving right now, there was a request to go back to view the VMT map that we had earlier. So maybe we could just kind of circle back and look at that really quick. Okay. Yeah, so this is the map that one of the participants today was interested in. You can see in the purple there, that's the VMT efficient areas. In the unincorporated area, there are more VMT efficient areas in the whole county, but they're all most of them are in cities. And then also our major transit stop. That's the only major transit stop in the unincorporated area is Buena Creek. And I think with that, we'll just kind of hold here, I think, for a little bit. Keep those questions coming in for the Q&A if you have them. We'll try and answer them. And we just got, I think Tara has an answer to one of our questions as well. Well, we'll just go through some of the things that we've answered here. Okay.
Sorry,
so just kind of, oh, sorry, Tara.
So that question looks like it's being answered. I'll just go back and summarize some of the other questions that we got in the chat.
Awesome.
So one of the questions we received was, what is the time frame being implemented for ADU plans and permits? And they are being reviewed within 60 days from the submittal of a completed application.
Gotcha. Okay, 60 days. That's great. Okay.
And one more point of clarification as well. There's a couple folks asking for copies of the presentation, and we will be posting the presentation online following the meeting. So you'll be able to take a look at the slides. The recording will also be posted online.
Yeah. And so the link is here, and also the link to our website should be on the email that most of the folks here who got today, who might be showing up here and got an email that this meeting was happening. There should be the link to the website on that email as well. One of our participants asked is, would this apply to a shared housing building? And one of our wonderful planners, Camila, answered. Actually, we were wondering if the question was related to subdivision law, which was one of the one of the changes as a part of this the housing zoning ordinance of this project. But there is no specific requirement in terms of who would live in those specific homes. So no requirements at this time. It could potentially apply to shared housing, but not necessarily. Let's see. Okay, Laura asks, she has some questions about Spring Valley. Curious about the maximum residential density. Supposedly it's supposed to be 10, and now they're receiving plans of 15 dwelling units per acre. And now there's more than one ADU allowed on properties in Spring Valley. What would the future number of ADUs be? So, Laura, if you're referring again to AB 803, those are the requirements that change the density. They don't change the density required on a parcel. Essentially, just allows somebody to kind of carve up a multifamily parcel and build things like townhouse, for instance. Does not change the density at all. I would say if there is a project that's being a plan that's being submitted for 15 dwelling units per acre in a 10-unit zone or general plan land use designation, I think that seems like it shouldn't be permitted probably unless there's something special going on like affordable housing and it qualifies for a very specific density bonus like we've covered here tonight. Does anybody else want to kind of try and take a question that we have here?
And I can jump in.
Yeah.
So we have a question, if the area on the map here in purple is VNT efficient, does that mean there's unlimited density? And the answer would be that this unlimited density would only apply to a project that has 100% affordable housing.
Exactly. That's great, Shannon. Yeah. So only if your project's 100% affordable housing and you build in one of these areas, do you get unlimited density. And you're still, there's still setbacks that you have to comply with. There's still, height limits, although you do get a height increase as it says here. But there is, there is, a limit you can't, to what you can build to some degree, again, in those limited areas. Okay, let's see here. So one of our participants asked, turning my garage into a 200 square foot efficient unit, would that be viewed as an ADU? And so that would be viewed as a Camila answered, the junior ADU. Again, that's so if you as something that's attached or in the interior of the primary residence, that's what we consider a junior ADU. It's like a garage. And if you wanted to build 2 ADUs on your property, again, one of those would have to be a junior ADU, a J ADU. Say something. Okay, let's see here.
I can summarize another question for you if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks,
So we
Shannon.
had a question on, is all affordable housing based on paying no more than 1/3 of your income? And the answer to that was an affordable unit is one that ends up costing someone of low income no more than 1/3 of their income. So this is based on the area median income. And so low income is 51 to 80% of the area median income, and very low is less than 50% of the area median income.
Awesome. Shannon, do you think we could actually go to that table that kind of shows area median income really quickly, just so that folks can understand what's going on?
Just gotta find the right slide for it.
Yeah, of course.
I think here. So right here.
Yeah, exactly. So this is so as Shannon, you were talking about, there's different kind of income tiers, and based on like what qualifies as an affordable unit kind of depends on the income. This is for income tiers, basically for a 4-person household, for moderate, low, and very low households. So you can see if you made if a family of 4 made less than $65,000 a year, for it to be an affordable unit, they need to spend less than or equal to 1/3 of their income in rent if they made $65,000 a year. So they would pay close to something like, what is that? 12 divided by 65, or 1/3 of 65 is like 30, 31, or no, sorry, $21,000 a year that they shouldn't spend more than that on housing for that to be affordable. You divide that by 12 and you can figure out what a monthly rent would look like for that. So that's kind of the income tiers and how that kind of works. And again, those tiers are based on the area median income, based on what the kind of the typical 4-person family makes in San Diego County. Do we see any other questions that some of our other planners want to try and tackle?
We could probably talk about considerations for areas in high fire severity zones. And the question was just, is there any consideration for those areas? And I would say generally, yes. Any project that comes forward would need to comply with California building codes and fire code, which addresses, emergency access, vegetation, the provision of hydrants. So then that's really applicable to any development, not just affordable housing.
Definitely. Yes, definitely have to abide by the California Fire Code for sure on that one. My understanding too is, you have to make sure that if you do build in a very high fire, you have to mitigate for fire risk, essentially. But it doesn't necessarily prevent you from building there in most cases. Let's see. Eddie asks, where can we get additional regulation on mobile homes being placed in a backyard without proper plumbing and electric? Well, so mobile homes can be considered ADUs if they have that permanent foundation, but they'd still be required to meet established state laws and also local ordinances to qualify. So if it's a permitted ADU, I hope it should be checked for proper plumbing and electric, is what I would say. And some, I think maybe one of our colleagues here can elaborate on that a little bit. Oh, never mind then.
I'm happy to elaborate. Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, no, that was about regulations regarding proper plumbing and electricity for accessory. Actually, Tara took the question. But we kind of answered that, so has to meet other regulations and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so so for regulations that would still apply, all plumbing and typical building regulations and safety would still apply for the development of the unit.
Okay, let's see here. We'll work through some of these other questions here. Keep them coming in, folks. We're doing our best to answer. Our team is on the line. We're kind of getting through them. Want to make sure that we're answering everyone accurately here. Let's see.
Tania has a good question. Would the county consider adjusting the current density of a property if it can provide 100% affordable housing? Setbacks, mitigation, what are the steps? So it sounds like a project like that would definitely qualify for density bonuses, and that project would be subject to the code amendments that the county is making right now to its density bonus program.
Definitely. Yeah, if you build affordable housing, you can, enough affordable housing, you can qualify for those density bonuses. And we can send more information to you on what that would look like in terms of scale, what density bonuses associated with how much housing. Let's see. Let's see here. Okay, one of our well, somebody asked for health and safety of residents, is the county considering no smoking policies for affordable housing? And I guess, again, we'd have to refer you to the housing authority. State regulations currently, that we're implementing through this project don't currently prohibit smoking. And zoning regulations don't usually prohibit smoking, but public health, I'm sure would be interested in comments like those, and we can make sure that we pass those on to the staff and also planning commission later on. Let's see here. What else?
Let's see, John Brady just put in a new question. It looks like Tara's going to take a shot at answering in the chat, but the question was, so many developers capitalize on density bonus, but what is the oversight to ensure that these units are actually being deemed and operated as affordable? So one of the primary mechanisms to do that is an affordability covenant. Ben, maybe you could tell us what the length of time the covenant is within the county of San Diego.
Yeah, I would say almost, they can be, the covenant can usually be 45 or 55. Almost all of them are 55. So they're deed restricted to have 55 years of affordability.
Yep, and then with the new laws and updates, any affordable unit that is demolished has to be replaced at that same affordability level. Exactly.
And that's one of the changes coming about as a part of this ordinance update as well.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, and actually, Cynthia asked a great question. Again, Tara, I think is getting at to answer this one. So people who are really low income still don't have access to housing. For instance, a family of 2 with an income less than $24,000 a year will not have access to affordable housing. So there are other tiers of affordable housing below very low, and that's basically extremely low and acutely low. And so we're trying to also, that isn't, for simplicity's sake, we didn't show it on this particular graphic, but we are trying to meet the housing need of folks that are making households, for instance, that are trying to make $24,000 a year. And make sure that we hold us to that. And actually, part of the arena is actually we need to meet a certain percentage of very low as well. Let's see.
I can jump in again, Ben.
Yeah, go ahead, Shannon.
So we had one more question for a copy of the presentation. So it will
Yeah.
be provided on the website. And so you can sign up for updates on the website, and the presentation, whether or not you sign up for updates, will be available there.
Definitely. Yeah, we will be sure to get this presentation so that folks can look at maps, look at some of the figures, make sure that they have all the information that they need, and also send us more questions. If you have more questions after this meeting, if you look at the presentation a second time, please send them in. Our public review period is going to end on Monday, February 13th. We're also going to have another public meeting a week from today at the same time, February 9th, Thursday, 6 p.m., same time, same place. We'll be happy to answer any questions you come to us then tomorrow or Thursday next week. We'll be happy to answer those as well. Oh, and when are the Tanya asked, when are the comments due again? So that's it's going to be Monday, February 13th. And the URL to submit them is actually best place to submit them is actually an email address. I think Tara is about to answer what that email address is, and we can actually throw that email address in the chat. If I could ask one of my wonderful colleagues to do that as well, that'd be really helpful. John asked, what is the county doing to meet the 60-day rule for approval and permitting? Right now, turn times for building are substantially greater. What about outsourced approval, increased staffing? What's the county doing to make this happen? And I think, Camila, you were about to type an answer. Do you want to let folks?
Yes, so for ADUs, which is the one we're required to review within 60 days, the county is complying with the timeline in state law. And we have, in terms of strategy to help us meet the deadline, for example, we have developed pre-approved plans. And the pre-approved plans really helped us be able to meet that deadline by reducing the time frame and also helping, not just helping the applicants save time and money, but also it saves staff time when they're reviewing the applications, and we have been able to meet the deadlines.
Oh, sorry about that, everyone. Dropped off there for a second. Sorry about that. Was somebody else speaking? Shan, were you going? Sorry about that.
No, Camila was just wrapping up the last answer. Yep.
Sorry about that. Go ahead, Camila.
So the 60 day, there is another question about 60 days. Yeah, the 60 days is applicable to ADUs review. That's right.
Fantastic. Okay. So Cynthia says, yes, but the units designated as very low and very, very low are very few. Not all units designated as affordable are affordable to someone who may be disabled or elderly or does not have any prospects to increase their income substantially. And, Cynthia, we are working really hard and making sure that, part of the regulations is also trying to make sure that, for instance, emergency shelters, supportive housing, low barrier navigation centers, those housing for homeless individuals, but also, again, the very low, extremely low, trying as best we can to meet the need that we have. And including and also seniors as well. We have a senior housing project that is underway right now, and we could connect you with more information about that if you were curious. Does anybody else want to answer? Some of maybe broadly kind of what the county is doing to meet some of the housing need that we've been hearing a little bit about tonight. Maybe somebody could talk just broadly about some of the efforts that are actually underway to make that happen.
I just want to mention that we're also doing public review for the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance. So the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance is a program that the board directed us to develop, and it would create a mechanism for developers to provide affordable housing as part of their project. And that, depending on what the board adopt, could include those lower income units that we discussed. So I would encourage you to take a look at the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance as well, that is available for public review, and provide your input. I'm going to put the website link here so you can take a look at that as well. And then I also want to mention in terms of senior and special needs population for housing and affordable housing, we are looking into options to develop or facilitate the development of senior housing for the county. We are going to be going to the board with some options and doing some public review at this, not public review, but public meetings to get input on these options at some point in 2023. But yeah, so we are also developing options for senior housing, and we're happy to share more information with you through an email. If you want to reach out to us, we can give you more information about the senior housing project that we're working on.
Awesome. Thank you, Camila. And then we actually just got another quick question, which is wondering, just clarifying the dates here again. So workshop, another workshop like this is going to be held next week on Thursday. That's the 9th, 2/9. And then the public review period is going to end the following Monday, February 13th. So you'll have another opportunity if you'd like to kind of look at some of our materials again, present more questions, get more answers, and then submit even more questions and comments also by Monday on the 13th. I guess a little about a week and a half from now. Okay, well, I think that kind of answers most of the questions that we've had tonight. As Camila just posted a wonderful a link in the chat to inclusionary housing. That might just be to post and oh, there we go. Excellent. And then please, if you have any more questions, please send it to the email that we're posting and we posted in the chat. It's also on our website, which we've also posted in the chat. Please send us an email if you have questions, any comments. That'll be really helpful.
We also want to remind everyone that we'll be putting a Q&A, a summary of the Q&A we discussed today on the website. So you can review the questions and answers related to the meeting today and then the previous outreach that we did. And I'm going to put more information in the chat in terms of the other projects that we have going on.
Oh, and then, okay, great. Awesome. And Laura asked a quick question. They had a map of planning area, and we could coordinate with one of our colleagues, Jessica Turner, to make that happen. Laura, why don't you if you send us an email, it'll be really helpful to kind of facilitate that particular request, actually. That'd be really helpful. Okay. Well, I would say maybe if we're not getting too many more questions in the chat, I think we can potentially wrap up unless there are some last minute questions while we have all the staff here. And Ani says she really appreciates our time and insight, and we're happy to give it, happy to give more of it whenever you would like. Please send us some messages, be really helpful. Thank you, John. Yeah, I think we can wrap up.
Thanks, everyone. Really great questions tonight.
Yeah, excellent.
I also added a website to our housing options here that discusses senior housing program. So you can contact us. You can contact Enrique. We have the information for you to contact each one of the project managers.
Okay. All right. Well, I think with that, we even finished in time for a little bit before 7. I think we're good to end the webinar whenever you're ready, Shannon.
Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for coming.